Hey guys. So I chose to do my documentary presentation about the McConkey documentary about Shane McConkey, who was an extreme skier and athlete who chased his passion as it led him down really crazy high risk routes. So before we get started, a couple terms for you guys to know so that you can follow along. Mogul skiing is a type of skiing with the big bumps of snow that you have to sharply turn around to get to the bottom. Slalom skiing is skiing where you turn, but it's not as sharp and you're just going between poles sticking out of the snow. Rappelling is descending down a cliff using a fixed rope like you do in rock climbing. Base jumping, this is jumping off of a fixed point, so like a skyscraper or a mountain or a cliff, and you free fall for a while and deploy the parachute before you hit the ground. Base stands for building, antenna, span, and earth, and these are the four objects that people jump off of. Last one I have is wingsuit. This is a piece of clothing that allows the glider to use the glide and free fall, as close as we can get to flying, basically. So Shane McConkey was a skiing prodigy. He started skiing when he was under a year old, and he was a natural at it and got really good really fast. He was told by multiple people that they thought that he could make it onto the U.S. ski team. So he went during his adolescence and went to a ski school and trained at slalom skiing with other kids. He was pretty devastated when he didn't end up making the team after training at the school for years, and he was lost for a while, not really working, just skiing, kind of reckless young adult behavior. And eventually he started mogul skiing, and this is when he first started making money off of his ski career. And even though he didn't have much experience with mogul skiing, he was beating people by landslides, and this was really rare. And he first got a lot of attention when he decided to jump on his skis off of a cliff that all the other skiers were rappelling down before continuing the route. And this started getting him some attention, and videographers began wanting to follow him around. Shane always wanted to challenge himself and take it further. And after years of extreme skiing, he found base jumping. And he was one of the first people, along with a handful of others, who started doing this sport back in the 80s. And he felt like he finally found his passion or calling. And base jumping is one of the more risky extreme sports that you can participate in, because there's a small margin of error. If you're only falling for a few seconds, you have to deploy in that time or you will hit the ground, and all of these jumps are from fatal heights. So mistakes are really critical with base jumping, because if you do have something go wrong, it will be fatal. And they began to notice this when a girl using someone else's equipment died base jumping off of El Capitan. This is whenever more injuries started to occur and people really started to consider the risks of this sport. So Shane took base jumping to another level and made it his own by combining skiing into the mix. He would ski off cliffs and then deploy his parachute, so it would be ski base jumping, and he even took it a step further by adding a wingsuit instead of a parachute. So he would ski off the cliff, and he had a pulley strap to detach his skis, and then he would use the wingsuit to glide down to the earth, which was really risky. He was taking some of the highest risks that humans really dare to participate in. However, over this time period, he also fell in love and got married to a woman named Shelley, and they had a daughter. He was still taking all of these risks and participating in base jumping and wingsuit flying, but now he had a daughter to take care of. So things started to kind of turn around for Sean whenever he had his first major injury and while base jumping, landed on a patch of ice and wasn't able to ski off of it correctly and dislocated his hip. His daughter was 6 months old and they actually visited him in the hospital, and this is whenever he started to suffer more injuries, and the film listed about 8 more serious injuries that he had after this. So he's starting to notice the risks and how bad things can really go, but nothing, had been fatal or anything. So one question I had when I was watching this documentary was if the sport was providing enough purpose and sense of meaning for the athletes to be worth the constant risk of fatality. I personally, for myself, I wouldn't want to participate, but I can't say that no one should participate, because if this is what you're living for, then I guess some things are worth dying for if you know the risk. If it's the only thing that makes you that happy and it's your passion in life. But my opinion kind of changes once you start to have a family. I think it's irresponsible for these athletes to continue to take these risks when they have children that they need to be taken care of. Because you're not only risking your life at that point, you're risking really changing the trajectory of the life of your child and family and loved ones. And then I also wondered if it was ethical to film all of these jumps. As amazing as it is to see, is it inspiring others to do the same and ultimately leading others into injury or a sport that's too risky? So this documentary showed a lot of points of view. I liked how we got to hear from Shelley, who was Shane's wife, and it put into perspective what he was really risking every time that he chose to base jump or wing glide. And they also gave the perspective from Shane's parents, which was really eye-opening to me. You got to see a lot from the loved ones. However, you didn't get to see Shane's point of view because he did ultimately lose his life base jumping in 2009. I respect the passion and drive that Shane put into everything that he did. He never stopped chasing his dream. But I believe there is a limit, and it's good to listen to your body and intuition. Especially after he had the baby, I think it was irresponsible of him to continue living this lifestyle. I think most people identified with this film, even if they weren't an extreme athlete, because they were inspired by the way that Shane put his full passion into everything he did and never stopped trying. Shane is an example of hard work, determination, and fiercely going after what you want. But I think people should remember that he did push it too far, and in the end he lost his life because he got lost in his passions.